The kingdom of Cerulia was built around its lake sporting the same name. And well, there is a debate on how that they got there, by spit or tears of the fertility god. It was likely his piss. And well, the capital of Cerulia isn't the only city on the land. We focus on its history, and by its extent, its monarchy. Cerulia's calendar goes as far as at least 26 to 185 years. So it can be stated that the kingdom has a lifespan of more than 2.5 millennia. The name of its first king has been lost by time, now only remembered as the one-armed king, starting as just a humble fisherman and content with a simple life. He was gifted a castle grown out of a lotus flower in the middle of a lake. Around the castle grew a city and a kingdom. Likely in an attempt to retract the favor of the gods, the Fisher King started the yearly sacred event called the Ladies of the Lake, which one or all beautiful women chosen were sacrificed and thrown into the lake. But it was to no avail. He remained Cerulia's king until madness and finally death claimed him. It is unknown if the barbarian princess Lena was related to the Cerulean family, but very likely she was known to wage a 10 years crusade to unite the South, as she wielded a flaming cleaver, and legends say the rivers turned red with blood, and the sky turned ash black. At that time, the people wore as less clothes as possible, believing that showing skin gave them the protection of the gods, wielding only lion cloths and armored brass, even in combat. But as the practice heightened injury, not to mention exposure to the elements, the practice was abandoned after a while, and the intimidating strategy of strong, heavy armor was made into use. King Gorland the Undaunted portrayed the practice to a T, as he brought his full and fully armored royal guard to each war meeting. Sadly, kings learn the hard way. Knights' loyalty goes to its people first, and their king second at times. When King Jamery, the Unspoken, committed mass murder to the guilty and innocent alike, throwing them into a cauldron with boiled wax and laughing maniacally as his victims dissolved into a waxy pulp. This cruelty caused that the people were even afraid to utter the name of their king. And when a woman spurned his affection, the king gave in to his anger and removed the day of the week that he was spurned by her from the calendar. This was called the daylight slaying, and to this day Cerulia has only 6 days instead of the usually 7. Eventually, the outspoken king was disposed by his own guards, and they decided to give the king a taste of his own medicine. He was thrown into the same cauldron that claimed so many lives. He rose from the cauldron and fled into the forest, and there he became the Master Ink, a huge slime with a crown on his head. Trying to remove the taint of their bloody history, Jaemery's replacement, John the Merciful, stopped the sacrifices of the fertility god, and as his son, Percy the Pervy, had a thing for women in swimwear. The ladies of the lake was turned into a beauty pageant. After some generations later, King Curtis loved music so much, dedicated a whole festival to it, and picked just a day of the year from the calendar. Nothing more. Then there was the wise but secluded King Pantis the Obsessive. He had many plans and started building the Great Archive until it ended to a crawl. It was only completed by his successor, his son Clemens, not known as wise but more sociable, and was thus honored by history for completing the great building. Clemens' daughter, Princess Helena, was rescued one of his knights, Franz, by sailing past the pirate ships while carrying the vandal of a far-pressed merchant ship. After this, the king destroyed all settlements there and banished the survivors to the corners of the kingdom. The further names of the kings are unclear, but we know at least the last three. The name of the next king we talk about is unknown. It could even be the knight Franz that married into the family. But nonetheless, the king had a mighty beard of drills that he shredded at least 12 bandits on, or so it said. He was followed by a strangely other unnamed king. History would grant him the titles like the Might of Cerulia, the Hand of Order, and the Lord of the Lotus Throne. As the titles would suggest, he ruled with an iron fist and was more feared than respected. This, however, didn't mean he was a true tyrant. The nobility has grown to be too powerful under the rule of his predecessors. When the king was lost in a storm, he was helped by a hedge knight who knew the lay of the kingdom better than most nobles. To repay the hedge knight, the king employed him as a squire until the man itself was knighted. That knight was Hugh the Fast, and the man quickly rose to become the kingdom's head of logistics, much to the chagrin of the nobles, although the king silenced them quickly and bluntly. When the king married, he often traveled the land with his wife and his daughter, and while cold on the outside, he shared his love for baked goods and flowers with his daughter, and both could be seen tending the castle's garden. The king was also known to play cards with Hugh the Lovehoused. What follows will be mentioned in part 2 of the Monarchs of Cerulia, where we conclude the rule of the mighty Cerulia and the start of its new queen, Queen Beatrice.
But that's when I found you, my trusty sword. With just my hand and you, I'm never bored. My adventures may have just begun, but for now I'll have some fun. I'll keep on going just for now. Oh, what do I do when I'm feeling stumped? What do I do when I'm feeling bored? Why, I take my sword and have some fun. Just a few more strokes and I'll be done.